Hello and welcome to EMDR Counseling Consultation. Today we're exploring the healing power of EMDR therapy and its unique impact on trauma recovery. I'm Rachel Totten, and I'm a certified EMDR therapist and consultant. And today we're going to talk about something that many of my clients ask. What makes EMDR therapy different from traditional talk therapy? The answer lies in the difference between what we call top-down and bottom-down approaches in therapy. In today's episode, we're going to dive into what these terms mean, why EMDR's focus on the nervous system is so important, and how this approach allows for powerful, deep healing without requiring you to always talk through every detail of your trauma. Let's start with the basics, top-down versus bottom-down approaches. These terms describe two very different ways to work through emotional and mental health conditions. Talk therapy is typically a bottom-down approach. That means that it starts with your thoughts, your higher brain functioning, like reasoning, analyzing, and reflecting on your past experiences. The goal in talk therapy is to often help you gain insight into your emotional patterns, recognizing why you're feeling a certain way, and changing the way you think about difficult situations, which can influence your behaviors. This approach can be incredibly helpful to people, especially when it comes to day-to-day stress, building relationships, or navigating life's challenges. However, when it comes to trauma, this top-down method can sometimes fall short. Trauma doesn't just live in our thoughts. It's stored in our nervous system. And this is where EMDR's bottom-up approach comes into play. EMDR therapy works from a bottom-up, meaning it starts with your body and your emotional reactions rather than your thoughts. And one of the main reasons this works so well is because of how trauma is stored in our nervous system. Let's talk more about why we focus on the nervous system in EMDR. When we experience trauma, especially early in life or moments of extreme stress, our nervous system, which is responsible for our survival response, goes into overdrive. Your brain and your body don't have time to process what's happening logically. Instead, they focus on survival. The trauma gets stored in our lower brain, specifically in your limbic system and brainstem, which is responsible for your emotional and instinctive responses. This is where your body learns to react to things like fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Your nervous system is essentially your body's alert system. It's consistently scanning for threats and when it encounters something that reminds you of past trauma, even if it's not a real threat. It triggers the same survival response. You might feel anxious, panicked, emotionally overwhelmed, and often this happens before you even have time to think about it. It happens within nanoseconds. This is why you can sometimes know on a logical level that something isn't dangerous, but your body still feels and reacts like it's in crisis. Talk therapy helps you understand these reactions, but it doesn't always reach the part of your brain that holds the trauma itself. EMDR, on the other hand, works directly with the nervous system to reprocess these traumatic memories and reset how your body responds to them. Instead of trying to think of your way out of these emotional responses, we focus on healing the body's memory of trauma so it's no longer sending out dangerous signals when you encounter something that resembles the original experience. And here's where the bottom-up approach gets even more powerful with EMDR. You don't have to talk about or recall the details of the traumatic event for it to work. In fact, sometimes talking too much about the trauma can slow down the healing process. Why? Because when you're trying to put traumatic experiences into words, you're engaging your logical brain. The logic and verbal parts of the brain can actually get in the way of the nervous system's natural ability to process the trauma. Think of it like this. Trauma is stored in the body. It lives in your nervous system as an emotional and physical memory. When you're trying to talk through it, you're activating the higher functions of your brain, your thinking and your reasoning mind. But deeper emotional parts of your brain, the ones that hold the trauma, aren't connected to the language. This is why some people feel stuck when they talk about their trauma but can't seem to shake the emotional or physical reactions that come with it. The key piece here is to get your body to connect with what your mind already knows. And that's where EMDR takes these two parts of our systems, logic and emotion and body, puts them together. In EMDR, we use bilateral stimulation, such as eye movements, tapping, sounds, to bypass the need for language and to help our brain process the trauma more naturally. This activates both sides of the brain and helps us unlock the traumatic memory that's been stuck in our nervous system. Once the memory is processed, your brain and your body can finally relax. The trauma no longer triggers the same fight or flight response, and you start to feel more in control of your emotions and your reactions. And because you don't need to verbally relive or explain the detail of the trauma, EMDR allows for deeper healing, even if talking about the trauma feels overwhelming or impossible. So let's bring it to life with a real life example. Say you've been experiencing a traumatic event that causes you intense anxiety when something reminds you of it. An example I often give to clients is I had intense anxiety while driving in the snow in Vermont. I know right now we're in a very beautiful season of fall and leaves are changing, but we do experience a significant amount of snow in the wintertime, and driving in it would be anxiety provoking for me. Smells, sounds, specific situations are all triggers to the trauma response. With traditional talk therapy, you would work on figuring out where the anxiety is coming from, and develop strategies to cope with it. And as a therapist, I had strategies to manage my anxiety when driving in the snow. There were several things that I did to prepare myself for the anxiety of having to drive in the snow. However, when I worked with this memory or this fear with colleagues in an EMDR session, I learned quickly that this fear of driving in the snow went back to a time that I actually went off the road as a teenager when driving in the snow. When I reprocessed the memory and the physical sensations and connections to that memory network, my anxiety resolved related to driving in the snow. Logically, I understood that I was having anxiety and it was related to driving in the snow. However, the trauma response was rooted within my nervous system. By reprocessing this memory with EMDR using a bottom-up approach, I worked through my nervous system and through the lower brain where the trauma was stored. By processing the memory in a nonverbal, body-focused way, EMDR helped my brain and my body resolve the trauma I needed without having to talk through every detail of it. It gives your nervous system permission to relax and finally release the emotional charge around the traumatic memories. This is why EMDR can be so effective for folks who feel stuck in traditional talk therapy. It helps heal the body's reaction to trauma, and as a result, the mind starts to follow. Your emotional responses become calmer, and your body no longer reacts like it's in survival mode. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you have a better understanding of how EMDR works differently than traditional talk therapy and why EMDR focuses so much on the nervous system and the bottom-up approach that can lead to deep, lasting healing without the need to relive every painful part and detail of things that you've experienced. If you found this episode helpful, please subscribe to my channel or share it with someone who you think might be finding the information useful for them. Stay connected to me on the socials and join my mailing list so you can be up to date on the most recent things I have going on within my EMDR practice. It's so great connecting with you. Have a wonderful day.